Welcome to Reefing Radio, your go-to salty station for reef aquarium talk, tips and interviews. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of Reefing Radio. My name is Chris, and once again, I'm joined by my polyp pals, James and Gareth. So it's been a little while since we've had an episode without a guest, and so we've had some really great guests recently. So today's episode, we're just going to have a bit more of just a catch up, find out how we're doing, how our tanks are doing. I know that there's been some projects going on, some tanks been neglected as well. So be interesting to hear how we're getting on. We've also got a listener question, which we'll discuss on kind of marginal gains. And then I think it'd be fun to wrap up with a kind of discussion around animals we wish we could keep, but can't for various reasons. So we'll come onto that stuff in a moment, but yeah, let's have a catch up. How are we doing, guys? How are you doing, James and Gareth?
Gareth's going to be the long one here. He's got a lot of projects on the go, so I'm going to let him fill the next 30 minutes.
I was like, do I start or do I just hold fire? Because it's going to be chunky, isn't it?
Go for it.
Right then, so where do I start? It's been a busy little while. I'm trying to think. The best bit's probably starting with where we wrapped up on the last episode, which was I was talking about my cattery, and I was hinting, or I might even have said that there was some issues brewing, and it's been interesting. So I still have 5 Catulophilia elegance corals. I have the 2 original ones, which are, if I'm completely honest, absolutely romping along at the moment. They're the best they've ever looked, which doesn't quite tie in with the theme of where I thought things were going. I got 2 from a show that we went to, and they were showing signs of elegance coral disease. It's one of those interesting ones, isn't it? We're trying to do like citizen science and trying to be scientists. So if you read about it on the forums, it's this disease that's passed around, fairly incurable, pretty much terminal if you get it. So the 2 that were showing signs of it, they look horrific. They're out in a QT tank outside the house at the moment because they're that sad to look at. But they are still alive. That's maybe 4 weeks ago, but I really don't rate their chances. They've got no tentacles left. They're all covered in mesothelial filaments and ballooning, like classic. If you look at the forums, it's a classic case of this elegance coral syndrome. And if you read about it, people think it's either protozoan or bacterial. Either way, it should be fairly treatable. So I went hardcore on it with antibiotics. So I did a KFC dip. If you've
really
read around, yeah. So the American version. So I did that for 12-hour dip. They recommend somewhere between like 5 and 24 hours. So I did 12 hours of that.
What does that involve? Because I remember I looked into it and it was like multi-stages, like all sorts of antibiotics, then like regular dips as well.
So yeah, I think it depends on what you're doing. So you can do it as a regular dip. I didn't see any improvement after the first dip, so I just kept them QT'd, but it's antibiotics all in one. So they just sit in this bath. And the idea is in that time they sat there, they're cycling the water through them. So they are taking in the antibiotics.
Where are you getting all these antibiotics from?
I was going to ask this as well. Yeah.
Like Amazon or eBay or your local fish shop?
That is the question, isn't it? Because, well, they're not all technically available, but it just so happens in my cupboard I managed to find all these different antibiotics, shall we say.
Sounds illegal to me.
If I find them in my cupboard, I don't know how they got there. They are, joking apart, like they are available. Like you can get hold of. Like I didn't do anything particularly crazy, but they're not easy to get hold of. But yes, anyway, I stuck them in this dip. Didn't see any improvement. But at the same time, I had my 5th cat, which is a black cat. At the time, I thought it had elegance coral disease, but I actually now think it probably light shocked it.
Right. Okay.
That one was. I forgot to say, I also did a freshwater dip, which I've never done on a coral before. The idea is that should just take out anything fairly microscopic through like osmotic shock. So
like they've crustaceans been or
exactly. Well, everything fell off it. Like there was everything came off it. So anyway, so these 3, the black cat started to look better, and so I took a chance. I was like, it's going to die in there. Like the other 2 are going to die, I'm fairly sure, but I'll keep doing what I can. So I stuck it in my sump, and it is transparent. Like literally, I can see my fingers when I hold it through the other side of it. But it's opening up, and it's looking better physically.
Yeah.
But it is completely see-through. So it's in a really shady part of the sump. I'm trying to feed it. It's not got a very good feeding response at the moment, but I've just put it in a new location. So
that must mean it has like no zooxanthellae at all, right?
no, I don't think it has
are you
anything.
feeding it to?
So so I'm trying. So I thought I had it in a still part of the sump, but it was enough to like push away I've been trying Goni Power and Mysis mixed together, but there's just enough flow from my filter roller to push it out. So I put it in the stillest corner. So tomorrow I'll find out. But yeah, it was slow to respond. So it wasn't catching things, and its tentacles are a bit short. So it's looking surprisingly good. Like I say, bar it being transparent, it actually looks really good and inflated, which is weird.
Yeah.
So I think if I can get some food in it and patience, I think I might pull it around, but I'm not sold yet.
They're an odd colour though, aren't they? Those black cats.
Yeah.
Like they're fairly like under whites. They're not translucent, like you can see your hand through them, but they are smoky.
Yeah,
is the way that I would sort of describe them. So
yeah,
I don't know. And it's been through the absolute ringer, hasn't it? I mean, you put it in a QT, you've put it in,
exactly.
You've really put it under some stress. So if it's holding on now, then I think it sounds like it'd have a good chance of making it through.
I think so. If I can get the nutrients in it, I reckon I can pull it around. It's whether I can get it feeding's probably going to be the critical thing. So we'll see. I reckon the next week or two will probably decide its fate in terms of if it starts feeding or not. But so that's interesting. But it's led me to kind of think that elegance coral disease maybe isn't bacterial, pathogenic. I just don't see how anything could have made it through so much antibiotics, freshwater dips like that. That should take out most stuff, really. And so for one to look, and they've all been in the same tank as well. So all 5 cats have shared the same tank water. Yet the 2 in the tank that were originally there looking the best they've looked, like they are puffy and amazing. 2 are on death's door. And
I'm a skeptic on all of these things, to be honest with you. I don't know. It's like when you get a cold, the NHS say don't Google it. But yeah, with Reef Tech, because the next thing you're dying and you've got heart failure, but you've actually just got the flu. And yet with, our coral, we're like, oh yeah, we diagnosed this on a forum. Loads of other blokes who don't have a clue what they're talking about. Not because they're not experienced or what have you, but just because that they're not doctors, they're not studied 7 years and understand at a real granular level the anatomy and disease. And yet we're left to our own devices, aren't we, with reef tanks? So we're really quick to jump to conclusions and say this is that disease, it's a common disease, but who knows, honestly. And I think all you can do, Gareth, is sort of what you did to some degree, which is just try and alleviate as much stress as possible. I think you got there in the end anyway. I'm not sure QT is the right thing, but it's just like, surely it's just about alleviating stress, on the animal and trying to get it to feed, and it'll either die or it won't. But you're still going to be none the wiser as to what it is.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, you've gone above and beyond really by treating with antibiotics, doing QT and stuff. I mean, when I've had corals failing in the past, I've had some instances of brown jelly disease and stuff. And I mean, I've done iodine dips and things like that. But to be honest, I've not gone to that great length to save stuff. So I think you've done a really good job trying your best to pull them through. And it's so tricky. We really just have no idea. One thing that occurred to me, it could be a virus, right?
Yeah,
that would be completely unaffected by.
Yeah,
and for some reason, it sounds gut feeling again, like just forums, anecdotes, gut feelings. It sounds like a virus to me, but I don't know what I'm basing that on. But that would be my guess, is that it's something a bit more. The way it could be so severe. Having said that, actually, so you mentioned this idea of like whether or not is it something communicable? Is it something that's actually spreading?
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I did since we've last spoke is I went to Coral Freaks at AAC, which is kind of a panel style show with there was Julian Sprung there, Tony Vargas, Jamie Frag. Crags. I always want to say frags. And Sailor Clemens, if you've not heard of him before, he's kind of this breakout kind of expert, I guess, in the reefing scene, who's doing a lot of work on coral pathogens and microbiomes. And he was saying that he thinks that a lot of the stuff that we struggle with in our tanks is not really disease per se. It's more of a syndrome. So it's like something's gone wrong in the tank. There's been some sort of stress event, and it's the microbiome, or it's something which is then causing, because he was saying people have like literally taken the pathogens which you could take the brown jelly string, the dying flesh, inject that into healthy corals, and they're fine. So if it was something that was pathogenic, then it should infect them as well, right? But he thinks it's like what looks like something that's transmissible and communicable and spreading is actually just everything is stressed, and it's the microbiome that's reacting. And so what's normally a beneficial or benign organism like bacteria, fungi, whatever, right, that's living on a coral, kind of like under those stress conditions, like turns on its host and starts to attack. So it could be something like that, but they're just I don't know, something in shipping, because it's interesting that your original ones are fine, right? So
exactly. And it's the two that came in together are the two that are showing the same symptoms. Like I said, the black cat and these two came into my tank at the same time, but the black cat has shown different symptoms to the other two. So I think you're right. Like, and something else I've noticed is my cats. I've got a couple of different types. Like there's ones that are cone, like a classic just single polyp coming out of a cone, which is what these three are. The other two I've got have been big. They look like more walling style that have been chopped down. They've been fragged. So I do wonder if that's something to do with whether those were maricultured or chances are they probably came from different locations. So probably where they originally came from, like you say, shipping stresses. The black cat could have been potentially like a deeper water coral. Which,
the black cat looks like different to me compared to the rest. It doesn't look like elegance.
No, so I do wonder that, whether it was a deep water that, like I say, I'd be easily shocked. And it wasn't even like I put it in full tilt. I put it right in the corner of the dimmest part of my display.
So it's T5s.
Cooked it with T5 goodness. But
I agree. I mean, as I was saying, like as I said earlier, I just think all you can do is try and reduce stress on the coral, because at some point it's been stressed. I do think that's the biggest cause of death, and rightly so. Right, we're trying to keep a slice of the ocean in a 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot box in the middle of the UK. Like, you're putting those corals under an unreal amount of stress, regardless of how good your practices are. So I've got no doubt that that's probably the main catalyst for these sorts of things. Sorry, Gareth. Next.
Yeah, that's all right. Next
project. You've got about 9 projects, mate. Come on.
Tick them off. Okay, so I need my fix of talking about Pectinias. It's been a while since I've talked Pectinias.
Oh, go on then. All right.
So I've had
Get it all out.
Yeah, I'll do it quick. I'll be quick. But I've got a few more Pectinias, which has been fun. So I've kind of been scouring the lands for Pectinia. I've got an update in that a couple of my ones down in my conditioning area have made it up into the display, so they're getting conditioned to, as you say, T5 light, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I got a fun one from Finest, which is, I think it's got a lot of potential. It's quite dark, the colour of the flesh, but it's got these like gold streaks through it. And it's just starting to get some green mouths as well, so that could be quite fun. And then probably the jewel in the crown is the red Pectinia that I got from Signature Frags this week. Yeah, that's one I've been hoping to get for a while. I missed it on the last few releases, but Christian very kindly let me know when they were coming up, so I've got one of those. So that's down in the sump conditioning, so I'm looking forward to getting that out. So yeah, Pectinias, I need to count them up, but I think I'm up to about 8 or 9 different types now. Okay. So yeah,
there's no Pectinia disease that you know of to worry about.
I'll find out very soon, I'm sure.
Something that just occurred to me then, like, so you seem to quite, your standard process of adding new corals is to condition them in the sump. I've never done that. I just, maybe because I don't have the space, but I kind of like, trial by fire. I just put stuff in. Often I'll glue it straight to the rock. If it lives, it lives. If it dies, it dies. But you seem to be quite careful about your additions.
It's. I think it's a twofold thing in that it's a new. So I'm not going to claim I've been doing it for years and it's this perfect process. I've probably been doing it for about 4, 5, maybe 6 months actually, and it's probably since getting the Pectinia. But I just noticed things. If I put them in straight in the tank, they were just looking a little bit light stressed, a bit pale, and they never got better. And I think quite a lot of the corals I'm collecting are, it's not like something, I'll just whip a frag off it. They're all quite single polyped. They're not something to frag. So it's not like you can, I'll just take a bit off if that goes. If it goes, it's gone kind of thing. So I think I've come to realize I need to go a bit more steadily. So yeah.
Can I be controversial?
Please.
Like you put them in the sump and they're all part of the same water volume, right?
Yeah.
But one of the big differences is you don't have that big thick sand bed in the sump and flow that whips around the tank. So, your sand-dwelling corals, your Pectinias, your Catiophilias, they're at larger risk of something funky in that sand bed with the flow as it is, sort of causing you future problems. Is that why they're happier in the sump, do you think?
I'm not convinced by it, if I'm honest. I think if something's getting whipped around in the water, it's getting ripped around everywhere in the water. Like, if there's pathogenic bacteria floating above the sand beds, there's enough flow there to pull those bacteria all around the tank, I would say. So I think it's more the fact I feed everything in the sump. I don't feed things in the tank. The light's a lot dimmer. The flow's a lot less. So I think it's just a more gentle environment. So I'm properly like pampering them down there. So I do nearly daily feeds of gonic power and things to stuff that's in there. Yeah,
Did you move your Catiophilia from the sump to the display before they got sick?
The two that are in QT went straight into the display. The one that was in the black cat went in the sump for a while and looked great, and I stuck that up in just in the corner of the display, and that's when it took a turn. But I'd say I suspect that one was light shock for the black cat, but the other two looked great and happy for a while. Like the black cat never really looked that happy in the display. But so I think I should have gone slower with the black cat, but it looked great in the sump. So
I mean, I thought you were going to say, James, that what Gareth is doing is basically acclimating them to low light, low flow conditions. I mean, I can understand the logic of getting them, if they're stressed already, putting them into like low light, low flow conditions is fine. But if they're healthy and they're happy, and you're then acclimating them to suboptimal conditions in dark, low flow sump, and then putting them right into a bright, high flow environment. Like, is it almost is that stage in the middle? I don't know. Yeah, I have no, I don't know either way what's right to do. And as I said, I'm a bit more of a kind of just chuck stuff in and hope it survives. But I've definitely lost stuff doing that. So I'm not saying one way's better than the other, but just curious to hear your thoughts behind it.
So I tend to like move them through the sump. So it's not like they just go in the sump and that's it. So I've got quite a pokey sump light, really. So I tend to put them on the edge, and over time I move them to right under the full bore of the sump light. So the sump light, if you're right underneath it, is just a touch higher than the display light on the sand. So it's as time goes on, I'm moving them slowly under the full tilt of the new Psych K7 Mini. I don't know, one of the Chinese. But that's what I tend to do. So I see what you're saying. Like, I agree. It does sound like I'm acclimating them to worse conditions, which is then more likely to shock them. So I get that. But I think like I say, I maybe haven't described that, but I'm also moving them into higher and higher light intensity over time. Yeah. So they should, but I mean, there's still spectrum and everything, isn't there? But par, that's roughly, is a touch higher than the sand bed in the main tank. So, but then they go into T5s, which put out light like nothing else in the LED world, don't they? So
I was surprised. I had a little dabble with T5s recently, and I'm probably not I'm not going to use them, but I was surprised actually how little par they put out, and I bet your T5s actually don't put out that much par, but it's more the spread. It's that blanket of, I mean, I really noticed that I tried putting a rig over my tank, and you can see the light like massaging into, cracks and crevices where normally LEDs wouldn't get in. So
I think when I measured it, they had about 20 to 30 par, so not much, but it's spectrum and spread and things, isn't it? It's different. Par isn't all singing, all dancing. It's just one of many measurements, but different.
Okay, what else have you been up to?
I feel like I'm the guest tonight. I work at a college where I've got I've landed on my feet this year, in that I needed a bit more time for my timetable for my teaching hours, and so I've picked up an enrichment group, which effectively means doing something with some of the students. And I work with 16 to 18-year-olds, so they're able and interested. So I've set up this effectively like fish club. There's only like 4 of them.
Okay.
But I've got them maintaining. I've got a freshwater tank, a little 120-litre saltwater tank at college. So they are doing maintenance and water changes and stuff on that. And I was like, I should really get them a little project. So I decided to buy a load of goldfish bowls. They're about 20-ish litres. And so I'm going to get them to set up various tanks. And they're going to set up, I think one's going to set up a freshwater shrimp tank. One's going to set up a little terrarium style thing. I was like, oh, well, since there's a spare one, I'll set myself a reef bowl. And so, that's on the go at the moment. I've got 2 projects at college at the moment. One is this reef bowl, which is probably going to get ahead before the other one. So I put some water in there today. A little off AliExpress, I got a little nano heater. And I mean, it is tiny, like 10 centimeters. And as I left work today, it was holding the temperature of the bowl, which is amazing. I can't believe it for the size. A little tiny little power head return pump, so it'll have a little bit of flow, a little bit of heat. I've ordered a little bit of live rock from online. It's a little garden centre shop, but I'd found this place and called them up, and it's apparently coming in from Indo, Fiji, that kind of place. And yeah, they're posting it out. I think I paid a grand total of like 20 quid, 25 quid for this proper live rock. We'll see whether it's proper live rock.
Indo or Fiji, because they're like 2 completely different places, right?
I think it's Fiji. I can't remember. We've talked about so many different live rocks. I think it's Fiji, isn't it? So we'll see. Like, if it comes in, it's real live rock. I can't wait. So I'm hoping this this reef bowl will be full of all sorts of natural creatures, things that come in on the rock. I really hope that's the dream.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So we'll see if it's real live rock to start off with.
I'm somehow so skeptical that this, it seems like the most random, aquarium in a garden centre shop that is shipping in like Fiji live rock.
True Fiji live rock.
Yeah, and priority postage is £3. Like it seems too good to be true, but it could be. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what turns up.
Definitely seen Indo live rock, imported with sites. I mean, the shop that I was talking to that's been bringing this Indo live rock in over the last 6 to 8 weeks has been saying that the main reason that they've being limited in terms of being able to offer live rock is there just haven't been suppliers that have been able to offer it with sites. Yeah. And they will only import things that are, all above board and strictly legal. Yeah. So that's limited their options. But I think that situation's changed. I think there are a supplier or several suppliers now in Indonesia that have got sites that basically taking the rock from the ocean and shipping it, and that's why they've been able to import it. So maybe it's that, Gareth. Maybe it's just someone that's doing it under the counter. Who knows?
Yeah, I hope it's not illicit. I'll feel bad if it is, because I'm not into that game. But you think if they're selling it over the internet online, it feels like you shouldn't be able to sell dodgy goods. But I mean, obviously, it should be like you walk into the garden centre, like, hey, do you want to come around the back and see what we've got in the tub out the back?
I mean, I've seen Maidenhead Aquatics selling antibiotics, and advertising that they have antibiotics in stock. So I don't think it's that well regulated. So it could be that who knows? I mean, I've got I buy live rock from the Goldfish Bowl. I don't know where they get it from. I think a lot of it's from tank breakdowns, actually, because you can see putty and stuff stuck on some of the rock. But some of it's like
Fijians with their putty.
Some of it seems genuine, but I had to have a real route around. But definitely, I think live rock's making a comeback. So I mean, it's nice to see that there are non-extortionate prices. You could get it for non-extortionate prices, because there are companies in the UK that you can get it from, but it's often very, very pricey. I mean, live rock has always been very expensive, but more so, more now than ever, I think.
Just shipping costs, right? Like you got to ship something by plane halfway around the world that weighs a ton. I know that live rock should be light, but the reality is it's wet and it's rock. And
it needs to get there quick, right, as well. I really regret setting the cube behind me. I set that up with dry rock. I really regret not doing live rock, and I think now I would pay I would pay the premium for live rock if I could go back.
For the 4-foot tank that I set up, I bought tank breakdown rock that had been kept with flow and a bit of heat in some water at a local fish shop. And I picked some beautiful pieces, and goodness knows how old they were. And I had a really sort of easy start to the tank's life. It was so straightforward. And then the tank I've got at the moment, the 2-foot cube, I started it with dry rock. But I mean, I kept it in the 4-foot for 2 or 3 months. A long time, cooking it with light and existing rock, and that rock was 3-4 years old, and still being a right pain.
Yeah.
So I do think there's something in it. And then people say, oh, I don't like the critters, don't like everything that comes out of it. You're dealing with loads of pests, and it's like, well, deal with dinos or
it's the worst.
Whatever it might be, like algae breakouts or whatever. It's just a pain as well. So
you get all those pests, right? Like even with dry rock, they eventually get in. They come in on the corals. They get in anyway. So I think that the sort of the NSA, the negative space aquascape, is on its way out. Like I don't see people doing that as much these days. So I think live rock's definitely making a comeback.
On that one, can we take us off on a detour just for a moment?
Go for it.
I often people quote like you get these pests and things. Like let's ignore like true Indo, like it's imported rock, but let's talk about like say tank breakdown rocks and things like that. What are the pests that you would like? I can only like for me, it's Aptasia's the only one that I really would like to avoid. Everything else, is it really a pest? Is it really that bad?
You hate Astrorina starfish. You gave me some right fucking headaches over that when I gave you those.
I do hate them, but are they that bad? Not really. Like I've got a Harlequin shrimp in there that's been in there for about 5 months now. Absolutely.
I didn't know you had that. Okay.
Yeah, he's been in there for about 5 months. He's still not done the display. I mean, there's an absolute horde of them in the sump, so I don't think he's ever going to leave the tank. But the worst that ever happened is that, so they're a bit of annoyance in that they get some of my zoas, but within like 2 weeks of getting him in there, like they stopped eating them. Like they're running for their lives every day. So
I didn't see it when we did the tank tour. I didn't see it anyway. Yeah.
No, so I think that's a good sign. I think when you start to see them is usually when they're starting to starve out a bit. So I've seen them a little bit recently, but there's still some in there. But I think I'm about ready to stick them in the sump. But again, like
they don't eat zoas either.
Oh, they do. Absolutely do. Should see them. Munch them up, slap them up like spaghetti. It's horrible.
I've never seen it. I've had loads and had very thriving zoas. So.
I must have got the less amenable ones.
I used to have loads of Astorinas in my old tank. I don't see any anymore. I don't know where they've gone. Like I purposely put them in. I see one occasionally, but I just don't have the big populations like I used to. I'm with you, James. I quite like them. I'm
for them. Like clean up crew.
I do think I've seen them eating zoas though. I do think I have seen them munching away. As I said, I bought live rock from Goldfish Bowl. That's the main place I've bought it from, and definitely got Aptasia from that. But I just went through with the Aptasia X or whatever it's called. Added a peppermint, no problems really.
I think you start messing with those things, giving them too many chemicals, prodding them with needles, trying to put rocks on top of them. It's like you're asking for problems.
Aptasia.
Yeah, Aptasia.
Yeah,
like
okay.
I've never seen somebody with like an Aptasia outbreak that's like gone after them and dealt with it. I think they're off, hands off. Find some natural predators, and just let nature take its course.
I've got like in every tank I've got a peppermint shrimp, and I find that they do keep things more or less under control. You get a few big ones that like sneak past them, but generally I'll see babies add a peppermint shrimp and they're gone. Like they're definitely eating them. So
I added some nudibranch when I had a little outbreak for the first time ever. That 4 foot that I ran for 4 years, I never had a single Aptasia. I mean, maybe I had something in there that was eating them, and I did have loads, but I never saw one in the display. And then when I set the 2 foot tank up, I moved the rock over from the 4 foot tank, and I got a bit of an outbreak. But put some nudibranch in there, and like the big ones sort of seem to be unpalatable to them, like they didn't touch them, and they've now grown into like big anemones. But I've had no outbreak of any smaller ones. They've sort of just kept them in check.
I mean, it's funny, isn't it? I think there's probably going to be a swing now towards So we had the swing towards dry rock, and everyone was saying how great dry rock is, and no pests, it's amazing. And now everybody's dealing with dinos and really long. Like the tank behind me is almost a year, and it's still just constant algae issues, constant nutrient issues. Nutrients bottom them out, and then they're really high. And I think it's down to the dry rock. There's just not that established microbiome. And so now we're pining for the live rock. And we'll probably go back to live rock. There'll be a swing back to live rock, and then everyone we start complaining about the algae, the macroalgae, the pistol shrimp, the mantis shrimp, the octopus that are coming in. Because I think it was I listened to a podcast. What's the DD guy? Famous guy with the big tank in London.
Oh, Saxby.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast. He was saying he started his tank with, God, how many kilos of live rock he must have used in that tank. But he had such a big problem, I think, with mantis shrimp and pistol shrimp, that he added an octopus, and that went through and hunted them all. But then he had to get rid of the octopus, which became a problem. It was tearing rock down and stuff. But I think the good thing is with octopus, they don't live that long. They sort of have a more or less annual life cycle. So even the really big, like Pacific ones that get huge, they live about a year or so, and then they die. So I think it wasn't a long-term issue. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what comes in on your live rock anyway.
Fingers crossed.
All right, James, we better move on. How are you doing? How are your tanks?
Neglected. I've been away. Like when we last spoke, I'd added the mangroves, which are still hanging in there. The reds are doing much better than the oranges. I had a bit of an issue with the oranges where I'd been away for 2 or 3 nights in the week with work, and they'd fallen out of their little holders and into the tank, and they were feeling a bit sad as a result of that. But they're hanging on, and the reds look like they're significantly happier. I have a feeling that I'm going to end up in a situation where I only have reds and not oranges, but at the moment I have both, so I'm grateful for that. But I've hardly spent much time at home. As I say, I've been away 2 or 3 nights a week, most weeks since we last spoke. So I've delegated tank maintenance and the care of the tank to my 5-year-old daughter Harriet, who's really enjoying it. I asked her when I got home from Switzerland last week, "How's the tank going, Harriet? Are you happy with everything?" And she said, 1 cube a day, redfish is naughty. So it sounds like everything's all right, and she's feeding it well, and she's able to identify the naughty fish. So I'm feeling positive about it. We'll see where it goes. I'm just glad that I don't have too many sort of finicky corals in there. I've got a lot of softies and macroalgae, and everything seems pretty happy. Just a shame that Harriet's not strong enough to be able to scrape the glass yet.
Do water changes.
Yeah. These 0 water changes. I reckon the water chemistry is probably not great. I mean, I haven't tested it actually, but like everything in there seems happy enough. It's fairly low maintenance. The soft corals are growing, and really that's what I want. So it's sort of, I think it speaks to keeping the livestock that you're able to care for. And at the moment, I'm not able to care for much, but I've got some beautiful livestock in there, whether it's, pallies or some, beautiful polyps and some amazing macroalgae that I love looking at, and I'm still getting quite a lot of joy. It'll be interesting to see when it all grows out, and like you start getting lots of macro, maybe a couple of mangroves, larger colonies of softies. I think it's going to fill that 2-foot cube like pretty well.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of the opinion at the moment that I'm not going to add much, and I'm going to see where it all grows out to. Like I've got lots of different gonnies in there, which are really cool. Some like rock flowers that are doing really well. So yeah, I've got some lovely stuff in there, and it seems to be dealing with the sort of hands-off approach. So I'm super happy with that. It just feels like, when you keep like LPS and SPS tanks and you've got spaces for corals and it all feels quite curated. I'm in this sort of like, that's not the vibe that I'm going to go for, because I can't curate it, in the same way and trim it. So I need it to like grow, and at the moment it's in that sort of awkward stage.
What's the naughty redfish?
Oh, it's the hogfish, the scarlet hogfish.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think it's as naughty as the yellow hogfish, to be honest with you. I've been trying to catch that bastard for the last 2 months. I bought a fish trap. I don't know if I mentioned that in the last one. And it sat in the tank for 2 weeks, and I was feeding only into the fish trap. And every time I caught the yellow hogfish in the trap, it managed to escape out of the little like hole that these fish traps have.
Yeah.
Goodness knows why they put those in there, but it's like over in a split second. So, and then in the end, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to give up." So I walked away from the tank. The translucent fishing wire that hangs off the door. Well, that wrapped around my leg, and I pulled the acrylic fish trap out of the tank via my leg, and it smashed on the floor into like little bits. So I'm now one fish trap down, and the hogfish is in there sort of laughing at me every time I have to work from home and from my kitchen counter, like, "You silly man, you think you're clever." I'm still here eating all the food and terrorizing the fish. So.
He's a nice hogfish though. What can you remember what the species is?
Yeah, it's a candy hogfish, I think they call them.
It's kind of like yellow and
yellow.
red,
yeah, they're beautiful fish. It
really
just needs
pretty.
a bit of a bigger tank, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think it'd be good as gold in a 5 foot, Gareth.
I like my Holican shrimp too much.
I think it has. Well, it's either that or the scarlet hawkfish. I've never seen the scarlet hawkfish like nail anything, and I have seen the hogfish go after inverts and what have you. But I think the hogfish has been nailing inverts, snails, crabs, etc. But could be the scarlet hawkfish. Who knows? But I need to get the hogfish out of there. I'm actually thinking that I did have my original plan, which we'll probably come on to, and it's like, what fish could you keep that you can't keep, or what do you aspire to have? Like, I had this like view of like lots of like little blennies and what have you. But actually, I think that the right thing to do is just like fill this tank pane to pane with soft coral and macroalgae, and maybe just have that pair of royal grammar in there swimming around as like 2 centerpiece fish that are pretty resilient, pretty robust, that I can just keep alive without a huge amount of intervention.
Yeah, certainly something to be said for, I think, sort of restraint and simplicity in this hobby. Obviously, I'm very active on Instagram, and the tanks that you see that get the most attention and the most likes and stuff are a bit more minimalistic or, controlled or thought out, I guess. And yeah, I can see that working really well. Just kind of a pair of, they really become the focal point, the showpiece kind of fish. I could see that working really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to let nature take its course. Apart from the hogfish, I'm going to try and whip it out of there as soon as I can. But
could you get in there with a net? Would that be? I guess it just goes. No?
He's speedy, isn't he?
I've
really
tried.
Speedy.
Okay.
I had a net. Like, I've got 3 different sizes of nets, and I've even like created like a hook to hang the net so that the net itself is in the water, and then I fed into the net. But it's just so bloody clever, and it's got memory.
Yeah.
It goes close, and you're like close to whipping it out, and you just fail. And it's like, I'm not going near that for another 3 days. So you've got to start all over again.
Yeah. Patience.
Patience. Or I need Gareth to come over because he's the fish whisperer, and he's been able to catch every fish that I've had an issue with. So
maybe at night. I've seen people with really tricky fish try at night because they tend to. Well, they're asleep, so you might be able to sneak up on it, or I don't know. Might be a way to get it. Yeah.
Get a red light out and find it.
Yeah. Do they?
Depends where it sleeps. Yeah.
I don't think that they burrow into the sand, but I never see it sort of free swimming at night. Like when the lights go down, it disappears. It must wedge somewhere into one of the rocks.
Okay. What have I been up to? So I guess the biggest thing for me is that I'm shutting down my lagoon tank. So I've been selling off quite a lot of LPS, which I've lost interest in, or I just don't think really work at a small tank. So my torches I've sold because, they're too aggressive really to keep it in a small tank. Their tentacles can reach like from one wall to the next. So it makes it really tricky in a small system to keep torches long term. So just selling off a few bits and bobs, and I am upgrading to a UNS 90 LA, which I now have in possession, and I'm ready to really excited to hopefully set that up this weekend. So this is the tank which Gareth and I we attended the Aqua 8 show, and we did a podcast episode on that, and we both talked about that was something I wanted to ask you. Your your tank plans, because we both talked about potentially upgrading to new tanks. We both saw tanks that we liked there on very different scales. Yours was, I think, 5 foot, and mine was, well, that tank, the 90 LA is actually 3 foot, but it's tiny.
Really?
It's 3 foot, it's 90
Wow.
centimeters, but it's all in one, and it's only 30 centimeters tall and 30 centimeters wide, but 90 centimeters long. So it's really interesting dimensions, really kind of definitely nano lagoon peninsula kind of style. So I'm transferring over the majority of the corals that I've currently got. So all the micromusa and gorgonians and stuff will go in there, and the anemone I'm going to try and make work, although it just seems to be getting bigger and bigger and won't split, but I'm going to try and make that work because it's so cool to have the clowns hosted in that. But I want to try and get some SPS into the mix. I mean, I think I've realized now that's where my passion really lies, is SPS. Not anything particularly fancy necessarily. I love the classic, the easy to keep Montipora and Acropora, stuff like that, but that's kind of, yeah, maybe longer term it will become a bit more SPS dominant, but for now I'm going to try and do a bit of a mix of all of them. So yeah, looking forward to setting that up. And yeah, it's a really lovely tank. It's definitely an upgrade on the second hand tank that I currently have. So yeah, shutting that one down, and then the SPS cube is okay. Like the coral are fine. I did a really big maintenance session on it this week because I've had a massive problem with bubble algae. So literally pulling out like fistfuls of bubble algae on that tank, and dinos are back again. Just again going back to the discussion of live rock. Yeah, I think this is just a symptom of that. Really, just started it with dry rock, even though I had loads of biomedia and stuff included in the sumper stuff. I just don't think that the live rock is it really takes a long time for it to mature. So yeah, basically just trying to tidy that tank up. And then I had a really big issue with that tank being noisy as hell. So it's a Aqua 190 mini reef, which actually has a Durso overflow.
Isn't it?
Yeah, Durso overflow stock, which is very noisy, right? Because that basically is just an open drain down to the sump, and water would just gush down that. I drilled it, so I basically drilled it to add in a Herbie style overflow, which has a valve which you could control and stuff and make it much quieter. But yeah, for some reason the last few weeks it's like just not been holding siphon. It's really strange. It's just been like waterfall sound of water gushing down the pipe. But I think it was due to like probably as it's matured and like things have slowed down because the return pump's a bit older, or there's gunk in tubes and things like that. Air is building up in the filter roller. It's not being pushed out properly, and I think that's breaking the siphon, because if there's basically a big air pocket at the bottom where the siphon exits, it's just not going to hold siphon. So I had to dismantle all of that, drill new holes. Drew holes at the top of the filter roller, and that's letting the air out now, and that seems to have really silenced it. So but yeah, just kind of a bit like annoyed and a bit disheartened with the cube. I want it to just get going and looking good, but it's just constant sort of setback after setback. Over the summer we had massive temperature issues. That tank was at 30 degrees for like 3 days or something, which browned all the corals out and stuff. So I don't know, it will get there eventually, but it's been a bit of a nuisance.
Have you got an action plan for how you're going to deal with the dinos, do you think? Or
yeah, I've definitely, it's interesting, like the longer I'm in the hobby, the lazier I'm getting. I don't know whether it's laziness per se, or like I'm just less James is waving. Yeah, I used to be super reactive, so there'd be a problem and I would fix it immediately, right? Like I'd be dosing stuff, or I'd be in the tank moving things around, and I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. But definitely earlier in the hobby, I spent a lot of time with my hands in the tank trying to fix things. Whereas now I'm kind of sleeve stuff, and I think it's almost too far now where I'm just, it'll be all right for another week. So I've had low calcium on that tank as well, really low calcium, like 200 calcium. And I don't know why, but just not been able to find the time to get in there and dose more. And it sounds stupid. I mean, I finally did it this week, like finally dosed some more, and it's raised up. I mean, actually I first of all thought that I had a problem with my test kit, so I didn't want to dose stuff thinking it might not actually be true, the test, but I've confirmed it against the reference and stuff. So yeah, so there's a bunch of like little things that are wrong on that tank that are probably contributing to like some of the issues that I'm having. So like low nitrates, high phosphates, high magnesium, low calcium, slightly high salinity, are all probably contributed to some of these issues. So, but I mean, actually, generally the corals look fine. I had someone come today to buy some LPS from Overtank, and they were really, saying like I had fantastic colors on some of the SPS and stuff. So I think it is all right. It's just, it's playing the long game. It's being patient. Like these things will solve themselves. So going back to your question, I mean, I've done a few things. Like I ran UV for a bit. That did seem to get rid of them. Then I replaced the sand with Ocean Direct Sand, which should bring in a lot of good micro biota. And that did seem to get rid of them. Now they've come back again. So either I'll leave them and hope it gets better, or try the UV again, I suppose.
I think that when you first start reefing, you sort of know where your destination is, but you don't really know how to get there. And then once you've got a bit more experience and you've had a bit more time, you sort of know your steps that you can take, and maybe you're less anxious or less sort of driven to sort of make snap decisions. You just think, I'm going to get there and I'll let it play out, and we'll see where it ends up. I mean, I feel fairly similar about my tank as well. I mean, there are time pressures on it as well, life changes and what have you. But like, I'm just not as anxious, Like if I saw like a small issue before, I didn't really understand it. I needed to understand it. I needed to fix it as quickly as possible. Whereas now I see a bit of an issue and I think, okay, well, I'll bring that down over time, and this is what I'm going to do. And it might take me 2 months to get there, but I'll get there in the end.
It's weird, isn't it? Like, because I was exactly the same experience. Like I used to be so on it and fixing issues, but I think probably that's one of the reasons why a lot of new hobbyists have problems, is because they're too reactive. Maybe I was always dosing stuff. I was buying things, as soon as there was a problem, it was almost exciting. It's like, yes, I can buy a new product and try this, that was part of the fun. Whereas, now I'm just very like, I saw Ulva in there, right? I think I mentioned that when we had Ryan on. That was probably a month ago now. I only just got around to taking it out yesterday, right? It was growing into a nice big piece of lettuce, but it didn't seem to be spreading or anything. I've kind of scraped it off the rock. Hopefully that was the right thing to do. And whereas back in the day, I would have been in there instantly, getting that out. So I don't know. It's probably a good thing and a bad thing. I think it's a good thing in that as you mature, as you say, James, like you're not so anxious. You're not so reactive. You're not necessarily making knee-jerk decisions that could probably to the detriment of the tank. But on the other hand, probably leaving calcium really low for like 3 or 4 weeks is not a good thing. So it's
there's a balance, isn't there?
It's probably maybe I need to prioritize stuff a bit better. But like you say, it's just also I've been super busy with work, traveling a lot and stuff. So it's just motivation and tiredness to do stuff in the evening. Okay, we've also had a question from a listener based in the US, a question from Edward, who has a 75-gallon aquarium with hang-on back equipment. So he says he found our show from listening to Reef Doc show. So thanks, Alex, for the shout-outs and sending listeners our way. So he said, in the spirit of Team Sky Ineos Grenadiers, he's a cycling fan. This goes right over my head, but I think James gets the reference. He says, where are the marginal gains in the hobby? So not hacks, but things to improve accuracy, performance, and efficiency. And he talks about how, he's calibrating pH and salinity probes and specifying what temperature probe it's referencing, and basically a lot of really fine detail, careful kind of calibration steps to make sure that his equipment is in sort of top-notch conditions. And he basically asks, like, is he mad going to such lengths to get to try and get really precise measures? Is it useful? Is this a good thing to do? And where else might you be able to squeeze out efficiency and accuracy? And so I guess, I boiled this question down to 2 things. Like, is there anything that we do that is kind of a little bit extra, that is just kind of eking out those maybe that extra 5%, which we might do that other reefers don't do? And are there things which you think aren't worth doing that people are just kind of wasting their time on? So I know something that came to me was like washing frozen food, for example. I've never seen, that's always kind of seemed like a marginal gain to me. If you might be cutting out a tiny amount of phosphate or something, but in the larger, bigger picture, I just think that's not going to make any difference.
That's coral food, isn't it? That's washing away all the coral food, from my view. But I think it's a dangerous game, marginal gains, in terms of when you're playing, like when you're pushing things to that level. It's really easy to push things just a bit too far, just the wrong way. So for me, I try and keep away from it. But I mean, just like this recently, I was chatting with James about this, that I'm on the back of my ICP. I had a few metals that were untraceable, so I'm putting in tiny amounts of replacements. So I'm not dosing like drippers or droppers, all that stuff, and I'm not even trying to do it quick. I'm just trying to put a touch more in. And so it's because I'm scared. Like if I wanted to get those gains, I'd put in the full dosage in like a week and then start dosing it and sending ICPs and blah blah blah. I just don't. I think it's dangerous. Like once I start doing that, then there's going to be other things, and
you've got to make a difference, right? That's marginal gains. What you're doing there, Gareth, I reckon.
Yeah, I realised that as I was chatting. I was like, I'm actually doing marginal gains. I'm doing it slowly, very slowly. So, like just to put it into context, like I'm dosing the correction dose over 50 days rather than 5 days because I'm not looking to hit numbers. I'm not chasing numbers, which again, I think that is part of that kind of trying to get.
You are chasing numbers, aren't you? Because you're dosing to a number. You're just chasing it really. You're not chasing numbers. You're just stalking them.
Yeah. I'm going to be so far away from them that I can see them through like binoculars.
By the time you've added everything,
them with binoculars.
Correct. So I see it as like I'm ensuring there's a bit more than what I was currently giving them, but I'm not trying to do this. Like I'm not trying to hit this spot on because I think it's easy to like overshoot or get things wrong. Whereas I've tried to build in some like safety measures, so there might be a little bit of change. So we'll see. I'll review, but
I guess that's, like, will it be noticeable, right? So like I went through a phase of dosing fluoride because I heard it brings out the blues in your coral. Didn't notice any difference. I mean, if it did make a difference, it was marginal, right? So it was quite costly because I was doing a lot, doing more regular ICPs. I was dosing quite an expensive element, and I'm not sure that it really made any difference. And if it did, as I said, it's like almost not noticeable, right? So
that's what I was saying to Gareth. I was chasing them down. I wasn't stalking them from a distance with binoculars. And Gareth said, "Did it make a difference?" And I was like, "Nope."
Yeah,
well, not that I could see.
Yeah,
naturally,
it might be a 5% increase in color, but what does that? Does that actually translate into anything?
But then, that could happen if you turn your light support down by 10%, or like if you increased your flow or reduced your flow, or what have you. Like, there's so many variables.
Yeah,
like food safety systems. Like so again, I'm going on a bit of a tangent here. I mean, this is a whole podcast that I could do, but
James's random thoughts.
Food safety systems are based on a principle called HACCP, right? Like hazard analysis, critical control point.
God, you're giving me flashbacks to A-level food technology.
But I actually think that HACCP's like applicable to a reef tank. So like basically what you've got to do is you've got to identify your 5 critical control points, like what's absolutely critical for you to be able to control the food safety, what's absolutely critical for you to be able to control your reefs, health. And then as part of your HACCP system, you have a number, a significant number in some cases, of what they call prerequisites. So like if your HACCP on your food system is around temperature control, you've got to keep that meat under 5 degrees Celsius. Then a prerequisite would be that you've got to calibrate your thermometer, right? So that and I think it's the same with a reef tank. So going back to the question, like what is it for marginal gains? Well, I don't know what marginal gains are. I think there's either gains or there's no gains. And actually it's like identify your critical control points. Like what are your 5 fundamental actions that you need to make sure you do on a consistent and regular basis to ensure the health of your reef tank? And then you say, what do I need to do as prerequisites to ensure that those 5 critical control points happen when they happen, and that they happen with a degree of accuracy so that I can tell that I've got control over that environment. And that's what I would say. So just write yourself a HACCP plan for your reef tank.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something in that. I mean, I'm a proponent of trying to make things easy. So water changes, for example, like I would love to say that I do them every week religiously, but realistically, obviously that doesn't happen. But I'm generally quite good, and something that I've done to make it easier is to like be able to set up in the garage basically like these big vats, so that I've always got like 80 liters of salt water. I've always got 80 liters of fresh water, and I just can turn a tap, fill up my bucket, add it to the tank, drain the tank, and that's very, very quick and easy to do. So that kind of the sort of thing you mean. So that makes that the actual critical thing is doing the water change, but what can I put in place? So rather than, I don't know, chasing traces or whatever, right? Like it'd just be better to do more water changes. So what can I do to make that easier?
So like your
rather
critical
invest in
control
that,
point in that situation would be do a water change. A prerequisite would make sure that you're generating RO with 0% TDS, or you're using a salt with, that would be, another prerequisite of that would be that you're using a salt with levels similar to that you're running your reef tank at. Another prerequisite of that would be that you heat the water to a certain temperature before you do your water change. You could end up with tens of prerequisites, but maybe only 3 or 4 actual critical control points, which might be water changes, testing, PAR, some sort of flow metric. I don't know. It depends on your reef tank, right? Like a flow metric for me, keeping a soft tank isn't going to be a critical control point. But if you've got a tank full of SPS, then maybe it is. And it's the same with any food safety system as well. It's like, it depends on what sort of food you're producing, cooking, manufacturing. They're all different. I mean, they revolve around a set of principles. And then it's like, you've got to be able to do the prerequisites in order to be able to achieve those critical control points consistently.
I think that's quite a nice way of thinking about it. Yeah. Do you think there's anything that you maybe something like you used to do or you see reefers doing that you think is a waste of time? Like I mentioned, like washing food, for example. Is there anything that you used to do that now you're like, why was I wasting my time doing that?
It's not something that I do. I do hear other people doing it. I've never quite got my head around it. James reminded me a moment ago when he was saying having your salt of a certain levels that match what you want your tank at. I've never really understood why people don't just run their tank at the salt's level. It's adding carbonating things to your salt. Just choose a salt that mixes to what you want. I find that fascinating. That just seems like an extra level of complexity, another like link in the chain where it could go awry. Just buy salt that mixes close to, because I don't think it really matters, does it? Do you know what I mean? Like half a degree of difference is nothing. It's not worth topping up with. Just get a different salt. But
I do think it matters on some level. It depends on how detailed you want to be. But like if you've got a tank full of like sensitive SPS, for example, and you keep a really low KH, you probably don't want to run your nutrients really high. So there are. I mean, we spoke about this on a podcast, or we sort of disputed this on a podcast, which is like how much of these things need to actually be in balance and how much do they not. But I do agree with you, Gareth, on some level. It's like buy the salt that you want to buy, keep your levels at that, and manage your reef tank to it. Like don't
make your life easier.
Set parameters at a odd level and then struggle to find a salt that mixes to that. That's absolute madness.
I did that. Like that's a classic example of, I think, like beginner me that was trying to. So like I'd heard that, I watched all the videos from BRS and they said that Tropic Marine's the best, but they also say that you should keep your DKH at 9, but Tropic Marine mixes at like 6.57. So I was buying Tropic Marine, making weekly salt up, testing it, adding buffer to it. I didn't do this for very long, but that's a classic example of, I think, like, new reefer to the hobby that's really keen and energetic and sort of wants to do their best, falling into that trap of kind of, that's an example of marginal gains. Like I don't think it made any difference. Probably just even like salt in general is something that people argue over and over again, about which is the best brand and stuff. That's probably like an example of marginal gains. It probably really doesn't matter. Like you say, you just pick one which matches your parameters, and as long as it's not super cheap and
super dirty,
it would be fine.
Has no trace.
Something else that occurred to me, because I did it this week, like I was correcting that the calcium on the tank behind me, as I said, was super low. I don't think it's worth like dosing that over a period of several days or weeks to raise it back up. I just did it all in one go.
The opposite to Gareth.
Yeah. So I've done this before with alkalinity. I've done it with calcium, and I heard them talk about this on reef Reef Therapy with Jake and Mark, the old classic episodes, they were like, who's got time for that? Like, just dump it in and get your levels back up. The corals will be fine. I always the way I justify it is, I think in the wild, every now and again they get massive surges of water from the depths that are completely different from what they're normally in. So as well, I don't heat my salt water, but I do water changes with. That's probably again something which could be considered, marginally a marginal game. Yeah, maybe, it might slightly stress them out a bit less.
I think that makes sense when you've got a really healthy tank full of like healthy coral. Like I think it's like degrees of stress. Do you know what I mean? Like Gareth, black cat that's going through a tough time. You want to like overload it with like freezing cold salt water.
Yeah.
Like dosing loads of calcium, and I just think it adds to the stress. But if you've got like a really healthy tank that's thriving, like sure, it can deal with those swings. But
no, I mean, probably it's one of those things that like it would be better if I did it properly, but I've not seen any negative effects. I do it on my lagoon as well, and I mean that's romping along. So I think it mixes so quickly with the warm water that's in there. Like the actual temperature only drops like 2 or 3 degrees. So overall globally, right? So I reckon it's all right.
Depends on the watches. I've done both, to be honest with you, on the temperature thing. Like, I've heated it up, and I tend to heat it up now. But I've also done freezing cold straight in there, and it's dropped down to 18 degrees, and I've not had an issue. But I've also had an issue before where who knows what it is? It comes back to this whole like, let's blame something, let's pin the tail on the donkey, but we don't really know. It's like I've had issues where I've stirred up the sump and I've gone, I've really disrupted all of the microbiome, and I've released loads of nutrients.
All the mold.
Corals have started to strip, but was it really that? Like, who knows?
All right. Well, I don't know if we've really answered that question, but but yeah, I mean, I definitely think that you can go too far, right? Like, and that I think, as we kind of just discussed, like early on in the hobby, I think it's quite fun to get really into the weeds and try these things. But I found personally, like, the longer I'm in the hobby, the more relaxed I am about stuff, and I tend to actually not have the time or the motivation to really invest deeply into these kind of marginal gains. So if you really want to go that far with things, I think have at it. But I that was it for me, I think, as a new hobbyist as well. Like I was so into the hobby, I wanted to like do stuff to the tank all the time because I wanted to do something with it. But I just don't have that time now. Okay, all right. Let's wrap up then by discussing animals we wish we could keep, but can't for whatever reason. So hopefully you did your homework and you've got some suggestions, or at least you can think of some things on the fly. So it could be very simple. Simply that they get too big for your aquarium, or they're too specialized, or too aggressive, or too delicate. So what did you guys come up with? What are some things you wish you could keep that you can't?
I guess if I get the ball rolling, because it kind of came from a conversation we were having, wasn't it? That I'd really like to have a clam type in my tank. I've got the perfect spot for it and everything, but it's a risky one in that I think my copper band would go for a clam, and I really want to try with a big clam, because I do wonder whether it'd go for a big one. I think a little one it'd absolutely smash it, but I do wonder if a big one would just be too far removed from food source. So anyway, I'm not sure I'll ever try, because I'm worried of the risk of putting it in. Like it's quite expensive.
It's an expensive gamble,
exactly.
Particularly a big one.
And if it gets it, exactly. If it gets it, it's going to get it good, isn't it? It's going to munch down before you get it out, kind of thing. So
I would quite like to see a copper band eat a clam, which I know sounds weird. I know that sounds weird, but like they have such tiny, delicate mouths. If you imagine like a big clam, like how are they eating that?
They peck.
I saw a copper band nail a trachea. Do you remember that, Gareth? You saved half of it.
Yeah.
And it like basically pecks and pulls. That's the only way I can describe it.
Tears.
Tears it off.
Okay.
It's an aggressive peck, isn't it? You're right. Like it's a proper like bam, like snapping it and then shaking it away. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I tell you what, though, if you want to see it, Chris, you supply me with the clam. I'll do
Okay.
it. More than happy to do it. You can make it happen.
So, yeah, I've encouraged you in the past to give it a go because I once visited a guy in Reading called Richard, who I think he's shut his tank down now, but he had a really big tank and he had a massive copper band, like one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. And he had loads of clams. Again, big clams. But what he said was really interesting. So he said you can't keep, I think it's Durasa. I might be wrong, but I'm sure it was maybe it wasn't Durasa. He said there was one type of clam you can't keep with them because they don't close up properly. So when they get big, they don't like close all the way up, and they always kind of have some of the mantles sticking out. And so he kept those in the sump. But I think it was Maxima, Crescia were fine in the tank because he was saying as soon as the copper band tries, it just closes up. So he was like, as long as you get them big enough and you stick to Maxima, you stick to Crescia, they can cope essentially with it. And eventually the copper band learns like this isn't worth it. It's not worth the marginal gains of trying to attack this clam. So yeah, I think you should try like a bigger Maxima or something and see whether that works.
The problem is they don't turn up very often, do they? So I'm honestly keeping an eye out for a tank breakdown clam at some point.
Take mine before it dies.
But yeah, that's the plan. If I see a big one turn up on a breakdown, I'll have a second hand clam and give that a crack. But yeah, otherwise everything.
Clam.
I'm getting well into this idea. It's the same with like I've realised with my cats. Like if I want more, I need to get them from a tank breakdown. Like that's the only safe way to do it. So secondhand corals. If you got secondhand corals, I'm interested. Send me a message. Secondhand clams.
Something which I've always wanted to keep is orange spot filefish, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So if you've not seen them before, they're not, they're very different to your sort of standard Aptasia eating filefish. They have the same sort of shape, a bit more elongated, but they are bright sort of turquoise with orange spots. So yeah, they just look phenomenal, and they often in the wild you always see them in pairs, and they're often sold as pairs in shops. So really, really beautiful fish, but the drawback of them is that they eat predominantly acropora, is my understanding, that they eat acropora polyps or SPS polyps. It's a little bit unclear of like, are they actually eating the coral or algae on them or the mucus or whatever? Like, would they actually, I don't know if they would actually destroy a colony, but they would definitely probably reduce its health, and you wouldn't have such good polyp extension and stuff. So they're a fish that I would definitely like to keep. And because of that weird diet, they're often, I think, very difficult to actually keep, right? So they're really difficult to get feeding and stuff. But I listened to Brian, can't remember his last name, but the guy who runs TMC basically. And he was saying that they've found a source of them in the wild that are very hardy in comparison to where they were previously collected. So they take frozen food much more easily than where they were collecting them from before. And he was saying these days they don't have any issues with them. But so that definitely piqued my interest. Yeah. And they're the sort of thing that I imagine might be captive bred at some point, because they captive breed Aptasia eating filefish, I think, now. And because they're a kind of fish that naturally lives in pairs, a bit like clownfish, I think that makes it a bit easier. So be really interesting to see whether they could be captive bred. I think you'd always have the issue of them potentially eating corals, but I've seen people keeping them with coral. You just have to pick the right ones. So again, maybe clams, maybe trackies. You'd have to basically figure out what is it they don't eat, or what can you live with them eating, maybe. So I would love to try one of those at some point. Have you ever seen them in shops before?
Yeah,
I've seen them once.
Fish.
Yeah.
They're always a bit bigger than what I expect. I always think they're going to be tiny, but they're a good couple of inches or so.
I blame the front of the box on the Salafat test kit for me, like thinking that they're really small, but they're not. They're a decent size, aren't they?
Yeah, but yeah, lovely, lovely fish. Would love to keep them one day, but you'd have to. Yeah, it's really a fish first tank in that case, right? And it's kind of, you just have to, what else works around it. I think they're quite delicate with flow and things like that as well. But yeah, maybe one day, if anybody keeps them, I'd love to hear what that experience has been like.
For me, with the tank as it currently sits, I'd love to keep some nano blennies with some big anemones like carpet nems and, that sort of very simple tank with those two species would just, for me, be lovely. Lots of colourful, big, floor-dwelling nems, and then lots of small fish. Whether it's nano blennies or barnacle blennies, and those types of things. But just too much risk of failure. Difficult to feed, difficult to keep alive, and then you've got that whole relationship between the big nems and the small fish, and how's that all going to pan out?
I mean, those carpet nems are really predatory. I think they would be eating those, snacking on those little blennies.
But it'd be beautiful, wouldn't it? Like lots of small fish, big colourful nems. It would. I'd love that in a 2 or 3 foot tank. Really low scape. Like even maybe like a bit of a shallower tank.
Yeah.
But not.
Would you do it with clownfish rather than blennies, where you're more likely to have success with them?
Yeah, potentially. You could do like skunk clowns or something like that, potentially.
I don't sound as enthralled by that, do you?
No, I don't feel the same sort of attraction to it. It's weird, isn't it? Because, like, why wouldn't you? Like, they're beautiful species, beautiful fish, beautiful nems. Why would you not? They're happy together. Why do you not keep them? I think there is something about the danger in it, isn't there? When you think about what could I keep together that I'm just not going to ever really do. There's something quite exciting about it because you're never going to really do it. Yeah.
I saw a lovely blue carpet anemone this weekend, like dinner plate size. It was really amazing. They would be really, really nice to keep. I mean, I think the drawback that's not one I had on my list, but one I would quite like to keep as well at some point. But I think that they're quite difficult because they always have bacterial issues when they're imported, but they also move an awful lot. So I've heard, I think it was Tidal Gardens said that like they had this bright pink one and it was like single-handedly responsible for more floods than anything else on the farm because it would constantly move up and block the overflow or the return or something and cause floods. So they're really mobile. They're really predatory.
But like a shallow 3 foot by 2 foot, but maybe only by a foot tall. Really sort of like top down looking.
Look down on them.
Tank with low flow, with like lots of small fish and quite low rock work with barnacle blennies in and around the place and small little nano blennies and then like big colourful nems sprawling out all over the sand. Like that'd be like my dream tank, but it like is a dream. Pool. Yeah, like a little colourful dream pool.
I've talked about a Moorish idol before, and that's a different one in that I think in the past it used to be a fish that you'd struggle to feed, wouldn't you? But more and more time goes on, people are having success with feeding them. And I was like, I nearly got very close to the idea of doing it a year or so ago. And I just had that realization that I've got a real fleshy LPS tank.
Yeah.
Like the chances are it's just going to absolutely ruin the tank in 24 hours, isn't it? But it's a bit like the copper band in that copper bands are tricky, getting them to feed. And I've had success with that, and I feel quite buoyed with it. So it's like, I could probably do it with a Moorish idol, and I'm sure I could if I get the right one and put the right time and effort in. But I don't think it'll go with my coral selection. It's a fish I love. Like I really like the Moorish idol. It's the one that I remember from like sea life centres and things like that. So, bar the copper band, I'd say that's those two would be my top 2 fish if I could have any fish in the tank. But I just don't see that I'll ever have a tank that's either fish only or not with flowy, munchy kind of corals. So unfortunately, I don't think I'll ever get to keep a Moorish idol. Like you do get lucky, like you see them on forums and things with people keeping them with LPS and things, but it's the luck, isn't it? I think it's more luck than it is anything else.
I also wonder, like with these things, like when Chris was saying that you see these filefish, with grown out reefs, it's like for how long? Because we can all put pictures on the internet, can't we? And sort of go, look at this, amazing. I've got this bannerfish with all of these amazing LPS. And it's like, well, you might do for 3 months. And then and then you've got a bannerfish and no LPS, but you don't see that on the internet either. So,
well, Alex Reef Dog tried one, didn't he? And I think it was in his tank for like 3 weeks or something before he had to get it out. Interestingly, it went after chalices and encrusted LPS rather than like the fleshy stuff. Yeah.
Maybe I do need a... I was going to say, maybe I do need one, like my hatred of encrusting corals. Maybe a Moorish idol is actually my dream.
Yeah, could be. I've heard Cheerios. So they apparently are big issue. Yeah, I've heard a big issue with them is that they don't get enough fiber in their diet. And I'm sure it was Elliot for Marine. Is it Marine? Oh, what's it called? He now does like the stuff with Ryan Batchelor. Oh, I can't think, but they're like a high end supplier of fish in the US. They're like,
It's what they
it's
do,
like
isn't it?
3-4 grand for a fish sort of thing because they get it through quarantine. It's like, the best marine fish you could buy, basically. I'm sure he said Cheerios. I may be like completely making this up, but it's like a way to get fiber, extra fiber into their diet. So maybe it was a joke, but and that's now going to be perpetuated in the hobby. I'm sure, maybe it was kind of a wives' tale that that's what you can feed them. But definitely that was what he has said, that fiber is the key thing that's missing, because I think they eat a lot of like sponges and stuff as well, and algae, and so they need that kind of roughage, I guess, to stay healthy. Otherwise they get gut problems and stuff like that. I think not massively into like big showy fish. I've seen Moorish idol in shops, and kind of fish you see, I like to set up a big tank for one of those. But completely opposite to what you just suggested, I really like twin spot gobbies. Do you know the ones I mean? Yeah. So they are crab mimics. So they have like I think a spot either end of their body, and so they kind of walk along like crabs. And again, they live in pairs as well. So you see them quite often in shops, but supposedly their survival rate is like 0. Like that on a long enough timeline, they just really don't do well. But for some reason, I don't know what it is. Ever since I got, they were one of those fish I heard about very early on when I got into the hobby. Saw them quite a few times, and I've almost bought them quite a few times. But I just love them. I think they're so enigmatic. They're such interesting patterns. Again, they live in a pair. I always think I quite like fish that live in pairs. You get that interesting interactions. But yeah, they're almost impossible because they're a sand sifter, right? So they depend on getting their food out of the sand, which makes it very difficult to feed them because you need a really big, healthy sand bed. And I just don't think you could do that in a tank. There was a guy in Australia who I was watching. He did a YouTube series on them where he tried like really hard to keep them. So he went out to like the Australian mudflats, collected all of this silt and everything, and set up a really big tank that was just basically muddy silt rocks, and he was pumping in live food. And they actually did relatively well. I think he lost them because of something stupid like a power failure. But recently I saw Biota have started captive breeding them. And they said that they are really easy to keep, that they will take normal prepared foods. And I've already asked TMC if they can try and get them in. So I'm sure we could go on forever talking about fish we would like to keep. Yeah, we've spent more time talking about all the stuff we've been up to than I thought we would. So maybe we'll have to come back to this conversation at another time. I think that's everything for this episode. If you enjoyed the show, best thing you can do is tell a friend who's into reefing about it. Leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really helps get the show to more people. You can find us on Instagram and YouTube under Reefing Radio. And if you've got a question you'd like us to discuss it like we did today, or a topic you'd like us to cover, then just drop us a message on Instagram, Facebook, or you can email us at reefingradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
You've been listening to Reefing Radio. Subscribe, share, and stay salty. Reefing Radio, over and out.